You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rate a story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I am your Omega level matter eater lad. I am the werewolves that inhabit Zack's skin.
Wow, you're an Omega werewolf. That's intense. I noticed you're you know, you are Zack, but like there's a little bit of gold. Like in your normally there's like a little bit of silver that shows, and now you're a little bit of gold.
Well, it's actually not gold, it's adamantine, the metal of the gods.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Very different, very different. I didn't get my arm ripped off in a bad crossover and then get told that sorry guys, me and Adam specifically gave ourselves 10 minutes before recording to complain about current X-Men comics because you know what? I feel like for the people who are enjoying them, maybe they don't want to tune into this show and just get the negative vibes up front.
Yeah, we're going to keep it positive today.
We're going to keep it positive. Just know that as someone who I would say had a non-zero impact in Magik appearing in multiple comics over the last few years, at least getting that ball rolling, I'd like to take some credit for that, some of which because some people have told me that I deserve some credit for that.
You do.
Long story short, I've enjoyed more comics than I have recently. And you know what comics I have enjoyed, Adam?
I believe you might enjoy some of the ones we're reading today.
Historically, I've enjoyed comics about Ilyana Rasputin.
Yeah.
Technically, it should be Rasputina. I get it. I also have read many Russian novels. We had a diversion about Dostoevsky last week that one of my friends texted me about today. So
that's great.
Adam, $5 if you can guess which friend immediately would be like, oh, Russian literature on your podcast. I want to talk to you about that.
I mean, I can think of several of our friends that might have been. Was it Chris?
It wasn't Chris. It was Rob.
Was it? It was Rob.
It was Rob.
Okay, he was going to be
Rob.
My first guess, but I went with Chris.
It was Rob. I asked Rob if he would change his name on a Christian Dare, and he wouldn't.
Okay.
I sent him the form and everything.
Wow, bold to ask.
It's $165. Rob, I'm calling you out on air. Christian Dare, let's go, buddy.
Jeez. Yeah, we're talking
Ilyana Rasputina would not do a Christian Dare because her heart is black from the corruption in her soul.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I'm not even clear like what her soul is at this point. Like we kind of had an incomplete
like 5 rocks,
soul
I
for
think.
A while, and then like she's made up of a shell of what she used to be, but then everybody kind of forgot about that, and then she got a cool redesign.
Hold on. It was, if I'm remembering right, and again, I may not be.
Mm-hmm.
Belasco kind of pulled an echo of her from her memory or something, or his memory of her, and then eventually she got the soul stone locket that had 3 of the 5 pentagrams filled with her soul.
Remember that?
So she had a partial soul already, and she had that locket, and she tried to fill it with Pixie's soul.
I remember that.
Then she did a gambit to get rid of the Elder Gods, who were essentially the Gaborum from Runaways, fun fact.
Nice.
To destroy them and get all of her soul back. So I believe by the end of Zeb Wells' run on New Mutants, she's equivalent of OG Magik.
She's just back.
She's just back.
Cool.
But like, listen, mostly she's been back this whole time. Souls are more of a theoretical concept than anything else.
It's true. So Zach, why are we talking about Ilyana Rasputin, aka Magik, this week?
Because we like her, and because Carlos Cordova likes her. And Carlos Cordova went on over to patreon.com/Battle of the Atom, reached deep down into their hearts and pocketbooks, and tossed a couple of coins straight into our coffers. And Adam,
Yo.
if people want to be like Carlos, they can go right over to that website for $5 a month.
Mm-hmm.
For $5 a month, a third of the price of 1 week's worth of a crossover that's making you angry.
Yeah.
You can go over and support some X-Men content that you're assumedly enjoying,
Yeah.
or at very minimum, getting Adam and I to talk about something that we don't want to, or that you want us to, or whatever.
I mean, at least 2 out of 3 here, I'm very excited to talk about. And
This is like episode 383, and I
It
like
is.
to think like 90 to 95% of the episodes,
Mhm.
I've wanted to talk about something in the episode.
Always. Even if it's
There's
something.
been a few. Let's not pretend that we have a perfect batting average, Adam. There's some nights we're just not on.
There's a few duds. Not tonight. Not tonight. We have some new Mutants. We have some classic New Mutants, and we have one like really strange thing that I'm interested to talk about.
By the way, if you want the background on that really strange thing,
Yeah.
I do not have it.
I am likewise very confused, but we are starting with some classic New Mutants tonight, Zach. We are starting with New Mutants number 52. This is Chris Claremont writing, penciled by Rick Leonardi, inked by Dan Green. We have a beautiful cover by Bill Sienkiewicz. And
It is a good cover. It's a good cover. Ilyana's fighting Sim.
Yeah, and Sim on the cover notably doesn't look like on model Sim, looks like David Sim, horrible person, Cerebus.
You know, I understand that when Chris Claremont named Sim after David Sim creator of Cerebus, the Aardvark man,
Yes.
that he was doing it as an homage to who was at the time one of the most innovative and exciting creators in comics that he was probably friends with.
Mm-hmm.
And yet time has just made this decision more and more prescient to make this terrible misogynistic torture pig man to name him after David Sim. I was once at a comic book convention, and this guy was asking me to pick up his comics, and I looked down, and it was Cerberus, because he had been working with Dave Sim. And I was like, okay, bud, but you understand I'm not going to do that, right? Like, you seem nice. You get it. And he said, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, he gets it.
Listen, some people are just trying to get work.
Yeah. So, this is pre-Inferno and our friend
Post-Fall of the Mutants.
Post-Fall of the Mutants. So we are starting off this issue with a scene that really does look like the New Mutants are not only getting hunted, but also being killed one by one by the original OG Marauders.
There's the second page of this has Scalp Hunter doing his whole, I'm a Marauder, we kill muties, and then shooting Sunspot with the same layout that happens at the start of Mutant Massacre. And that's a really sick little like homage to something that was very recent. Like,
yeah,
it's just done that.
What's unclear at the start of this story is that it's a danger room sequence. What reveals it is that Ilyana, midway through, even as her teammates are dying, is like, "This is a waste of time." Takes a portal out of there, which is great. But to your point, Leonardi's art here is fantastic. Some really great page layouts. Some really fun stuff happening in this issue visually.
I feel like Leonardi is a guy that sneaks up on you. Like, I don't think anyone, unfortunate to like the era that he was playing in, I don't think anyone thinks of Leonardi as like an X-Men all-star artist. But he did a lot of like really solid stuff throughout his entire career.
Oh yeah.
On X-Men, just jumping in with things like the Genosha arc. And then even after that, like, he did a heck of a lot on Spider-Man 2099, character from a movie that I assume will have a sequel someday.
He's extraordinarily talented. I'm a huge fan of his work on God's Country, and I just think he's, I don't know, underappreciated. He's really talented. So
that's probably the right way to describe him. Is he is he probably never got the. Oh, hey.
Hey.
Did you know that Rick Leonardi helped devise 3D animation tools that could emulate his line work for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse?
No, but that's really cool. That's fun.
That rules, actually.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick Leonardi, good on you. Probably
Nice
actually
job.
got paid for. No, wait, he was getting paid for #1 in 1992. He actually probably got paid pretty well for Spider-Man 2099.
I hope
say
so.
that out loud.
I
would
do hope so. So we get a bunch of little vignettes of individual characters interacting, some fun character work, but the central story to the second half of this issue is Magneto, who, man, Magneto's just always sick of these darn kids and has a really interesting heart-to-heart with Magik that involves her taking him to Limbo.
So here's the thing. If I'm thinking about this, like, in my old age, and I'm Magneto, and this man that I have a very complex relationship with leaves to go get medical help with his hot space girlfriend, who's also part bird, and says, please take care of my young rowdy wards.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not prepared for this.
No.
Magneto's been like a swinging bachelor for a good chunk of his life. Like, I also would be very annoyed with these children if I'm Magneto. I think he's kind of in the right.
He's also calling them on their crap. Like, they're like, God, that Marauders Danger Room sequence was so terrifying. Like, that was like an X-Men level sequence. And he's like,
Bobby says that specifically. Sunspot does.
And Magneto's like, well, that's kind of weird because Bobby, you're always saying that you're as good as the X-Men. So clearly you're not. Sit down, you know?
I don't know any parent who would ever get really frustrated with something their kid's saying and snap back at them with a cutting remark like that. Couldn't be me, Adam.
No, but Magik is basically like, look, Magneto, I know you want me to like go downstairs and like train in the danger room, right? But I have to make you understand that like I'm literally kind of like in charge of this demon realm, and like I might be a demon, so I don't really have time for this. And
also, the demons are trying to overthrow me.
Yes.
And maybe our friend Warlock has infected this entire realm. It's unclear. I'm going through a lot right now. And at the same time, not just is she dealing with that, she's dealing with the fallout of the Mutant Massacre, which led to both her brother and Kitty being severely wounded.
Yep.
Like close to death.
Yes.
And Kurt, who she doesn't have as close of a relationship with in the real world, but did have a weirdly complex, like scary relationship with in Belasco world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like not a good relationship. Just like she's got some mixed feelings about Kurt.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of the my roommate stuff here, right? Like it's clear that Claremont is insinuating that Illyana is very much missing like a romantic partner here in Kitty. But she takes Magneto to Limbo, which is now being infected by the Technarchy. And, Magneto is basically like, I think I could take care of this for you.
They're metal, right? Like, Liana, I'm not trying to like get into your world here, but I can do one thing really well.
Yeah.
And that's anything that I can justify with magnetism.
Yeah. And Illyana is like, no, you know what? I got to solve this myself. But the two do a really nice job of fending off Sim and, a bunch of demons who are all, covered in warlock stuff. And, Magneto gives her a good reminder that like, yes, while you have all of this going on, you also have this like built-in found family here. And you need to remember to like interact with them sometimes.
Well, and more than that, Magneto reminds her that, so I kind of set the world up and threatened them with nukes for a while. So like, you're not the only one who's done some stuff you're not proud of, Yana. But what do you want me to do? You want me to apologize to every person on Earth? Or do you want to just like move on with our lives? Because we can only go forward. We can't make up for everything that we've done. It's already done. That's not you can't make up for anything. That doesn't happen. You just do what you can with what you got going forward. And it shows how Magneto can actually, regardless of how ill prepared he is for it, be a decent teacher to these kids. And I like that because we actually get very limited amount of Magneto being the real leader of the school. I feel less than people remember.
No, it's true. It seems like it takes longer than it does. And it's great that he has this little mentor moment because Ileana not only thanks him, but, is boosted in confidence enough to go outside and play soccer with the rest of the team. So it's a nice, standalone vignette for these two characters. And
That said,
yeah.
As nice as he is to Ileana, absolutely brutally terrible to Karma. Just mean to her.
That's
because she's like, I'm looking for my brother and sister who are 7 years old and got kidnapped. That's my priority, Magneto. Also, I'm a full adult who escaped Vietnam.
It's true.
I left during the fall of Ho Chi Minh City. You also dealt with some stuff. I'm not dismissing that, Magneto, but fine. You want to talk to Bobby like that? That's one thing. I'm an adult who's lived a lot.
Yeah, and she's also kind of serving as his administrative assistant. It's weird. So
technically that's what she was supposed to do in the New Mutants. And then Chris Claremont realized he doesn't like the character all that much and wrote her out almost immediately.
Yeah. There's a really nice 3-panel sequence with Leonardi kind of showing Karma in the office with Magneto and then slamming the door behind her and just really smart artistic decisions throughout.
Well, especially because on that page, it's 4 panels of fixed camera looking through a doorway, and then it's one wide panel of Magneto saying, just thinking things and saying, well, I need to try and fix Cerebro to make this happen. And then another 4 panels fixed on the bottom row of the page of him not doing it. So there's a lot of symmetry in the page. It is very well laid out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like this issue quite a bit. I think we should try and rank it on our big old list.
Well, that's the rub of this whole thing. We do have a big old list, don't we?
We sure do.
The thing about our podcast is we're trying to rank every X-Men story from best to worst. We've done it 1,008 times.
Wow.
And buddy, we're going to do it a few more times today.
Mm-hmm.
The best X-Men story of all time is, of course, the House of X and Powers of 10. Sorry, haters. Be better. I don't know what to tell you. like better things. If you don't think this is the best, I feel sorry for you. I really do. At 250 is Uncanny X-Men 246 and 247, where they fight Master Mold. 500 is Generation X, What Happened to Cassidy Keep. 700 is the Hazard arc from X-Men right after Jim Lee left. The 1,000th best X-Men story is She Lies with Angels. That's, Adam, that's the one where Chuck Austin does a Romeo and Juliet.
It's bad.
And then also a different couple has sex in the sky in front of that couple's mom.
It's not great.
Incredibly readable. Deeply bad. Which is all of Chuck Austin's run.
That's true.
Also, the worst X-Men story of all time, 2099 World of Tomorrow. So here's what I'm thinking, Adam.
All right. Tell me what you're thinking.
I'm thinking that we have some New Mutant story. Hold on. I have a baby that just crashed into my podcast office.
Hi. Goodbye.
My door doesn't lock. So the baby just crashes in.
That was very
constantly. Oh yeah, she's adorable. I love her so much. Anyway, where are you thinking, Zach? Where am I thinking? I'm looking around the list. At 236, we have a arc that we actually had to double check if we had covered for the podcast already because it was a good fit for the episode. It's New Mutants 65 and 66, Magik versus Forge. How do you feel about this? Do you feel like it's better or worse?
Well, we have 3 of them here, right? So at 236 is New Mutants 65 to 66. At 267, we have New Mutants Annual number 1. And then we have at 295, New Mutants 42, the time that Sam takes Lila to meet his mom. I think this is definitely better than the Sam and Lila issue at
Yes,
295.
I agree.
So is it better than New Mutants Annual #1 at 267?
We were complimenting the cover of this comic.
Yeah, it's a beautiful cover, but the cover to New Mutants Annual #1 is
Like,
better.
if we're going to compare Bill Sienkiewicz covers.
Yeah. I
It's
think Leonardi's art inside the comic is better than the New Mutants Annual #1, but the
which is
story
by
of New Mutants Annual #1, which is the first Steal the Planet with Lila.
Yeah, that's a Buscema issue, right?
Yeah, I think I would give the edge to New Mutants Annual, but I'm not
No,
sure.
it's Bob McLeod. Excuse me, it's Bob McLeod issue.
Okay.
Still, I think New Mutants. So right below New Mutants Annual number. Okay, so we are in the right spot though. We are like looking right here. We're right where we need to be because we've got right below that at 268. We've got X-Force Goes to Burning Man.
Yep.
And at 266, we have the Continuiteens issue of X-Men First Class. Someone should bring back Al Ewing.
Oh.
What are you doing not using the
Get that going.
Continuiteens for things?
Yeah.
I want an Al Ewing Continuiteens miniseries.
God. The layers, I'm sure.
It would be... Look, it would not sell, but that's someone else's problem. That's not mine. I can want what I want. I think that this is below all of those, but probably... Is it better than New X-Men Mercury Falling? I kind of think so.
Yeah, I think it is. This could be our new 269.
The problem with New X-Men is that I like New Mutants better. So,
yeah.
I don't know, guys. Be better.
So, our new 269 is New Mutants Volume 1, number 52. We are going to fast forward to a crossover event that I had never heard of before. Zach, what the heck is Mystic Arcana?
Here's what I've learned about Mystic Arcana. So, do you recall the Marvel event Civil War?
I do, yes.
Well, do you recall that at the exact same time Civil War was going on, there was a second Marvel event going on called Annihilation?
I just read Annihilation, actually. Enjoyed it quite a bit. Yes.
Did you read did you just read Annihilation or did you read all the lead up stuff to Annihilation?
I did all the minis leading up to Annihilation, and I read Annihilation, and it was great.
Yeah, Annihilation's pretty good.
It was a lot of fun. What does any of that have to do with Mystic Arcana?
Well, in the same way that Annihilation was supposed to be Marvel setting up a new status quo for their cosmic books, for their whole space universe, Mystic Arcana was an attempt to do that or do something similar with their magic universe. Now, why was Doctor Strange not intimately involved in this? I don't know, because it was 2007, 2008. Like, Doctor Strange was a going concern at the time. He may have lost his powers. I don't know. But they announced these 4 books to kick things off. They had the entire event under the creative control of a tarot deck artist named David Sexton.
Mm-hmm.
And they did
5.
They did 5 stories? Wait.
5 one-shots that include Magik, Black Knight, Scarlet Witch, Sister Grimm, and Mystic Arcana, the Book of Marvel Magic #1, which I think is just a handbook. It's a handbook.
Yeah, that's just a handbook.
So 4.
The idea was that they are based around the 4 classical elements. And they try to in the intro text to this, they try and justify this. They say the first 2 marvels of the Golden Age were a hero of fire, an underwater emperor, next a captain who stood for this great land, okay, and a man who ran faster than wind. So they're stretching it to begin with.
Oh yeah, big time.
Then they do the Silver Age thing. They're like, well, the Fantastic Four, they are like the elements, like the idea that Gaiman had in 1692 or whatever. And that works a little bit better. You have to squint to get Reed and Sue, but it's closer. And then they're like, and now here's the next set of 4. And brother, Ileana I don't know much about classic elements. But I would not consider Ileana to be associated with air.
No, no. And the entire thing about Mystic Arcana is that it centers around this deeply uninteresting character called Ian McNee.
How many appearances do you think Ian McNee has had before this story?
One.
Yes.
Right? He's
And
a
guess
Marvel
what?
fanfare character.
Marvel fanfare. The book where books went to die.
Amazing. So what we're getting here is an interesting artifact, though, because this is, even despite it being part of this little weird quartet of stories and having bookended stories about Ian McNee, which I kind of just skipped over because I didn't
I
care
also
about
just didn't. Once I realized that it was not going to be important to anything else about Magik, I said, I don't need to read this.
Yeah,
I
so
ignored it.
but the center of this comic is a story by Louise Simonson. So we have Wheezy here, penciled by Steve Scott, inked by Chris Justice, and it is essentially a insert story into what happened off panel when Magik accidentally time traveled back to Egypt in New Mutants 32 with Danny in tow and encountered Storm's ancestor Ashake. Am I saying that right?
I don't speak ancient Egyptian.
Yes. And they are then put onto a quest. Well, Danny gets sidelined immediately. She gets kind of knocked out and like, hey, just go lay in the corner. We don't need you for this story.
Right.
And they then have to go on a quest at the request of a ancient Egyptian sorcerer named Heka-Nut, which great name, by the way. Heka-Nut.
Heka-Nut
Heka-Nut
Heka-Nut is what
you can make a joke out of that, but I wouldn't.
I can make it. I'm gonna, folks. If you don't want children to, I'm not going to do the joke, but it has to do with me making fun of millennials and Doge speak from the past, which is so deeply unfortunate. Then just because it was cringy, and now because it's ruining the country.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that it's the worst part of what's happening with our government, but it is a really annoying part that we're saying Doge like it's a normal word.
It's awful.
It truly hurts me. Anyway, the joke is that involves that, and then that's like nut. Like, come on, like write your own joke here. You get it. You get it.
So Heka-Nut sends Akashi and Magik to go take possession of the sword.
It's just hold on. I don't think anyone said it out loud. I think they just wrote it because I did until you said it, Adam. It didn't click that his name was Heka-Nut.
Like, it gets worse because Heka-Nut sends Akashi and Magik to save the sword of bone. Oh boy. Apparently if anyone wields this particular sword, like the world ends or something. I don't know.
Bad sword.
Yeah. So they go into kind of a temple labyrinth. They fight a giant multiple headed snake that, is like a hydra, and they are then aided by an actual Egyptian god named Maat, M-A-A-T, who's pictured differently than would be in ancient art, but is pictured here with like a big alligator head.
Which is confusing because they have an alligator. It's Sobek.
Yeah, it's weird that they went with that imagery.
Is it bad that Maat does have the head of a crocodile. That's true.
Well, there's two Mats. This is M-A-A-T, which is
are we
not to be confused with M-A-T, which is a different Egyptian god.
No, this is the Devourer of the Dead. No, they got the Egyptian gods right on this one.
I'm glad.
I guess they had more than one crocodile, which is great. I just always think of Sobek because of that James Stokoe comic, Sobek.
Oh, okay.
It's just a James Stokoe comic where the god Sobek causes mischief. It's delightful.
They trick Heka-Nut into thinking he got the sword. He does not.
Heka-Nut didn't get the Sword of Bone.
Akashi denies the Sword of Bone and then puts it back, and then it's like nothing ever happened. So,
which is kind of what you have to do with the story like this.
yeah.
Can I tell you what I think is just structurally buck wild about this?
Please.
If I am setting up a whole like Annihilation style mystic world, and I'm not going to use Doctor Strange, that's already number one. It's like, well, he is the most profitable one that you could use. Maybe Scarlet Witch, but even then, in 2007, Scarlet Witch was not exactly having the best time.
No.
Regardless, I probably wouldn't do 4 one-shot like flashback issues of characters that have not historically been good solid solo characters. Like Black Knight is probably, of these 4 at this time, the most marketable character, and he's still Black Knight.
Yeah, I think it's
one of the worst Avengers.
You're bringing up a good point, because this is asking readers to remember an issue of comics that came out 22 years before its publication, and remember a very specific, like, odd little part about it. That
it's why it's one thing that I get annoyed when people are like, well, Storm's got all this mystic heritage and all this stuff. Sure, yes, I agree. In continuity, this character did exist. But continuity is not everything that ever existed ever. I think of continuity very much like I think of memory in general. We don't remember everything. We do remember general vibes. Like, actual memory is not incredibly reliable, but we have vibes and feelings, and like the stuff that matters will stick with you. And that's what's important. I don't think for a lot of people, Storm having a witch grandmother, great grandmother, was like important to them.
No,
and I know that because it took forever for her to ever come back in comics.
Yeah. I also don't think that New Mutants 32, which is post Sienkiewicz, is really lighting up people's memories either. So
it's just not in like the top 10 New Mutants things to remember.
No. So it's a bad combo, and it doesn't make for a memorable story or an enjoyable read. So I think this should go kind of low. I didn't get much out of this, unfortunately. It's a competently told story, but it's not much. Just like you wouldn't want to search this out.
This was her second appearance ever. I believe her third was in Sister Grimm, and then she didn't show up again until Gambit's solo series, or the Gambit miniseries that Claremont just did, like 2 years ago.
Who, Akashi?
Yeah, she was in that a little bit.
She's been in other stuff, hasn't she? I mean,
no, that and Resurrection of Magneto on like 2 pages. That's it. Oh. That's why, like, even now, she's not exactly an important part of Storm's thing. Also, Storm's got enough going on. We don't need to, generally, this is my overall feeling, we don't need to give Storm more. She started with too much, and then Claremont added too much to her. That's why Claremont had to take, like, most stuff away. Pretty, like, midway through his run, he said, we got to get rid of nearly all of this.
So I do think we're probably, like, in the 800s. Like,
let's see, what's that 800 right now? It's Dawn of M-Tech.
Yeah, this is worse.
This is worse than. Is it worse than Deadpool 27?
Which one's? Because 900 we have Brotherhood, and I would.
We have Brotherhood at 900. Well, my list is always like one issue off because we could do Excel better, but we're not.
No,
don't
it's okay.
Judge us.
I do think this might be better than Brotherhood.
This is probably. I mean, this is
similar in quality to the first 6 issues of X Factor.
Fine. The first 6 issues of X Factor are worse.
Because I don't like them.
I mean, I love that they're worse because we don't like them. That is a good.
That's what this show is.
Yeah, the show is us saying, well, I don't like this. Is it better or worse than X-Men Gold #9? We just talked about that one recently.
I think it's worse. I mean, there were a couple of things in there that I could at least hang on to. You
know what? I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
It's probably better than Captain Marvel 2 and 3 when we learned the secret history of Adam X the X-Treme.
Agreed.
It's probably worse than Civil War 2 X-Men, a comic where we don't learn much of anything and not much happens.
Similar quality. Yeah.
Yeah. In between those, we have X-Force Youngblood. And it's so important for us to now Google X-Force Youngblood in this exact order to remember which one is which.
I think this is the better one. Yes. This
is the second one.
No, this is the bad one. This is the bad one.
They blend together. This is the one with... You know what? Honestly, I don't know the difference between those.
All right, this one's better. I mean, no. Here's what I'm saying. Magik Mystic Arcana is better than X-Force Youngblood. So this should be our 882.
I trust you, Adam, as I do with all things.
Thank you.
We've never fought. We've never
disagreed. Never.
Always been on the same side.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, yes. I do think we're pretty much going to be on the same side on this last one here.
I think so too. I'm interested to see what you thought revisiting the Labors of Magik. This is New Mutants Volume 4, 25 to 28. This is written by friend of the show, Vita Ayala. Also penciled by friend of the show, Rod Reese. And we also get pencils and inks from Jan Duursema of X Factor fame.
Jan Duursema is not a friend of the show, but could be.
Never.
If I ran into Jan Duursema, I'd be more than happy to make Jan Duursema a friend of the pod.
Absolutely.
By the way, folks, if you don't know, Vita's gone through some hard stuff with a fire that impacted their family pretty significantly. There's a GoFundMe for that. I would have to check if it's still active. I assume most GoFundMes can be active indefinitely. Like, it's just giving people money.
Sure.
But if you can spare it, heck, cut your $5 from us this week and throw it over to Vita and fam. We'll throw a link of that in the episode description.
Great idea, Zach. Good point.
I think that's important because Vita's one of the coolest people in comics. And if y'all didn't read Finders Keepers, the Horizon Experiment one-shot Vita did recently with Skylar Partridge on art, it's super good. Go check that out. It's a reverse Indiana Jones. And if you're someone like me who's cynical and says that sounds like it may not be everything you want, no, it's good, actually. It's great.
So this arc is an interesting one. It has grand aspirations of kind of bringing Magik to a different place in her story by giving control of Limbo to Madeline Pryor. A sentiment her teammates Danny and Rain are deeply against, and Magik is very compelled.
I know we as readers and as fans love Maddie Pryor.
Yeah,
we do. I think she's great. Also, in universe, she has done some things that I cannot endorse.
No, she's a major
and in fact, quite frequently and recently had done some things I can't endorse. I cannot endorse Madeline Pryor's baby crimes and her lack of resurrection by the Quiet Council.
It's very funny.
I can hold both ideals at once.
Yeah, but it's very funny that Danny and Rain make some very salient points about giving Limbo to Madeline Pryor that then are borne out to be absolutely true.
Immediately. Immediately, because for folks who don't know, Dark Web happens right after this, where Madeline Pryor decides to cause some problems for fun, for her own fun, which is beautiful. Again, I forget if it made it on air or not, but talking to Zeb Wells about the thing that he loves most, Inferno, was beautiful. Getting him to talk about his favorite thing. We talked about that, and we talked about HVAC equipment.
Love this.
Me and Zeb talked about HVAC for a while before I said, you wrote Spider-Man. Like, you invented Paul. Why am I talking to you about HVAC equipment? I should be shaking your hand and thanking you for inventing Paul and making people angry.
So
I'll say this.
Yeah.
Because I want to get this out of the way first. If there's a negative point about this story, in my mind. It's that it pales in comparison to the Shadow King story that came right before it.
Sure.
And that makes it a little like this is of the couple of stories that Vita did for New Mutants. This is the weaker one. But also, when the bar was set so high, like, I'm not complaining if the reach and grasp do not meet each other where we want it to be. Like, it's still landing among the stars, if you would.
Here's what's interesting about this. So, for folks who have not read this story, it has a really interesting format in
Yes.
that there is a through line of a kind of a little goblin storybook character that exists both in storybook pages that are being drawn and collaborated on by Rod and Jan Duursema. You get your present story during, Krakoan age, illustrated by Rod Reese brilliantly, as always.
It's Rod Reese. What do you want to say about Rod Reese beyond I was down on Rod Reese for a little bit and I had to apologize deeply because I wasn't aware of his game.
Totally
Like
next level, right?
I remember his stuff in Secret Empire. And
Mhm.
I was like, this is not it's okay. I see what he's going for, but it's not hitting what I want it to be. And I was wrong is the answer. I was just there's no two ways around it. I was just wrong.
Yeah, definitely leveled up on this book. So you get the Rod Reese stuff in the present, you get the storybook stuff that's kind of cutting in between, and then you're also getting these stories of a young Ileana that are being drawn in a very different style by Jan Duursema.
A
And
style that is not dissimilar to like the Colleen Duran art that we talked about last week
yes,
with the Excalibur issue. Like it's very much a callback to 80s art.
yes, it's designed that way specifically. So it's reaching for a pretty profound statement in terms of how it looks. I'm especially with the storybook pages, I'm not as confident that it completely lands that plane. But
I think I would agree with you. The specific storybook pages, I almost wish that they would have gotten a third, more different artist to
mm,
do the storybook pages because Rod Reese is such a distinctive artist. And even though he is exaggerating his own style on those pages,
mhm,
I feel like you go completely out of comics because they're all pinups and get like almost a woodblock style,
mm,
like something so far different from both of them
mhm,
because Rice has like that Sienkiewicz quality to him
yeah,
that people really love. Very loose, a lot of texture to the art, a lot of exaggeration and cartooning with it, which is great. Where Dursema's incredibly clean, tight lines in that 80s style with colors that are flat and like very evocative, and the storybook pages like they don't make enough of a difference that you're not sure because all the storybook pages they are just retelling or they are telling the story that's going on in the middle of the story, so it's skipping in some cases what might conventionally be the most quote unquote visually interesting parts.
yes,
And I think I commend the choice, and I think there are absolutely pages where it works. Like when there's a page when Colossus shows up as like a hero who's got pulled into the story and turning him into a storybook hero there.
mhm,
I think that's effective. But then like there's pages where they're fighting Belasco, and that's less effective. Because
right,
I kind of want to see them fight Belasco.
yeah. Where I will say this really is very successful is that it's very evocative of the era of New Mutants that we were just talking about with New Mutants 32. This is a story that involves actual New Mutants characters kind of being bounced between a variety of different environments. There's kind of like a polar environment. There's a Alice in Wonderland style environment with Belasco. Colossus is dragged through a portal to join them on their quest. We have an older Ileana, a younger Ileana, and all throughout, Vita is still maintaining kind of the voice of the book that was happening as they led up to this piece. So, I don't know if it all holds together, but visually it is, especially the Rod Reese art, is absolutely stunning. And I think the only thing where I'm a little unclear is whether it really just all gels, because we get all this stuff of Magik soul sword shattering, and then we also get, which should be an evolution of the character, like this new gold, redesign that Reese did, and it seems to be ignored by
Well,
subsequent
so there's a
artists.
couple of things I want to touch on there. I'll start with the redesign thing and my thoughts on it. One, I like the gold version of her Chris Bachalo costume as for this story. It absolutely works. And I think writing that out for the rest of Krakoa makes a lot of sense, and because it's essentially the Chris Bachalo costume painted in different colors.
Mm-hmm.
I think that really works for this story. In universe, that comes because she's doing a thing with young Ileana, and young Ileana gives her the acorn that she made, which was a big thing in the Storm and Magic miniseries. And Ariana says, "I can't take this," and she says, "It's yours." Like, I'm not losing anything. I'm giving it to myself. Like, I still have it, which is a fun little connection there. And that's so she's finally becoming whole and taking all of her trauma. Like, it is an outward, the costume is an outward representation of the emotional conflict that's gone on through this series. And it has a magical girl transformation sequence that gets it. And I think that really works. I also am very cognizant of the fact that marketing wise, Magik wears black, and
Yeah,
it's
tough.
It's hard to make that big of a statement and say, also, we're going to completely change what this character looks like. And I think you could have done it 5 years before. I think you could have done it at the start of Krakoa, but by the time that we are at Krakoa, the ball has already gotten rolling for Magik to have the kind of ascent that she's had, being in multiple video games, and everything's that's just what Magik looks like now. And I think we have to accept that as she wears those colors and has that silhouette. That's what she is.
Yeah.
The thing that I think works really well about this story is that the emotional through line is very strong.
I would agree.
The emotional stakes are huge. Magik wants to get rid of Limbo and not rule it, and makes this point vocally, because why should I be forced to be the ruler of this place that is the source of a huge amount of trauma and grief in my life and all of this pain? And it also helps emphasize why she's comfortable giving it to Maddie, because Maddie has also experienced some type of pain and trauma and grief, and has that darkness and edge to her, and also has the magical abilities and knows demons and stuff. It is, of all the, if Magik is giving it to somebody, Maddie makes the most sense. You think Doctor Strange is going to deal with Limbo? No, Doctor Strange isn't going to
absolutely
deal with Limbo.
not.
Clea's not going to deal with Limbo. Giving it to Maddie, who doesn't want to be on a Krakoa that doesn't want her, and has nowhere else to go. And she can actually rule it and make something of it. And maybe it won't be what everybody wants it to be, but why should Maddie have to do what everybody wants her to do? That makes sense. Ileana's evolution emotionally makes sense, and it does what you have to do in a superhero story, which is drive the characters' emotional beats forward while keeping them in a spot where you can essentially pick up like nothing happened the next issue. It does all the tactical things that you have to do for this kind of storytelling really well. It plays with past, present, future. Ileana, it plays with relationships with her brother, which is something that I think is actually underdone in comics generally.
Yes.
And it's something that I really enjoy the relationship when it's done well, because I think it's where Colossus can be at his best, because it reminds you of Big Brother Colossus that you got for most of Claremont's run, honestly. And I think all of that works well. I think there are a handful of, because it is such a complex plotting situation with so many moving pieces, I think some of that doesn't work the way that you want it to. But I do think it gets wrapped up in a really nice, like, closed time loop bow.
Yeah.
That means that when I walk out of this series, I have a lot more. I have nitpicks on one hand, and I'm more harsh on the nitpicks on stuff I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a lot of really fond feelings and good memories of this, and it was great to revisit. It reminded me why I think Vita is one of the smartest freaking writers out there. Because look, I'll take someone who is going to try something and stretch. It's like Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison doesn't always land everything,
Mm-hmm.
but it's something interesting.
Yeah.
And you're getting that level of play with the stories that you get with Morrison's superhero stuff. Not in the same tone or vein, but the same intent. And I really love that about Ayala's work.
It's also just a really good send off for the book. Vita comes back for issue 30 to do one of the segments, but this is pretty much the final arc, and it's a really nice send off for an amazing series. So it sounds like
the series does, just to be clear. There's a different writer,
but for that part of it,
yes.
So I think we like this. I'm curious.
I like it a lot. I do like it a lot.
How much you like it?
So here's the thing. We have Dead Souls at 48 by Matthew Rosenberg and Adam Gorham. Another really good Ileana story. I think Dead Souls pulls everything together just a bit better.
Oh, definitely.
But I still really like this. The Hickman New Mutants is at 114. I think this is below the Hickman New Mutants. But it's like this is in the pretty good by Krakoa standards level. And that's between 200 and 100 in this issue.
Yeah, I do think it's a top 200 story. I don't think this is as high as, let's say, Marauders at 121 or Empire X-Men at 131.
You don't think it's as high as Empire X-Men? I like Empire X-Men, but Empire X-Men by definition is uneven.
I don't know. It's tough. I think we're on the same we're in the same spot here. You know, well, let's ask you this. At 123, we have the first 4 issues of Hellions. Is this better or worse than Hellions?
Bud, I kind of like this better than the first 4 issues of Hellions.
Okay. Is it better or worse than the Marauders 1 to 12 and 16? I don't think it is.
I think that Marauder story is telling a very different style story.
Yeah.
But fully executes what it's trying to do better.
Yeah.
Than this. Because like right above that, by the way, is X-Men Black Emma Frost at 117, the Empire tie-ins to the Hickman X-Men at 118, the Terra Verde arc of X-Force at 119, and Everything is Sinister from Gillen's Uncanny run at 120. So we are in
good company.
Good company. Right below that is Further Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, and boy, is that a tough one.
I think this is... I would give this the edge. I like that series quite a bit.
I like that series a lot. It's got that John Paul Leon, and I'm a John Paul Leon sucker.
It does, but this is trying more stuff, and I really like Rod Reese's art here. So I think I would give this the edge.
I think I would agree. I'd put this at 122. The Labors of Magik. Hey, somebody send in that Shadow King story, because boy, if you want to talk about if we said this was the worst one of the 2 big arcs Vita does,
yeah,
you want to talk about a story that I was pulling my hair out, going nuts over.
Great story, but we'll
that one.
We'll get to it. Just
that
like
one,
every
that
other
one I want to. I may reread that and then also reread Dead Souls at the same time, just to make sure I'm properly calibrating myself for the discussion I'm going to have with myself.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
I do think it's beautiful that Vita and Leah Williams are friends, and they both wrote some of the best Magic stories ever. Like, I think that is a fun thing. Do you know what else is fun, Adam?
This show, our listeners, everything is, it's great.
I don't know if our listeners are fun. I assume, but for me, this is really a one-way interaction.
Well, we do have to thank
I do thank our listeners,
our patron.
I just won't call all of them fun. I don't know them that
we
well.
don't know. That's a good point.
I'm a hermit now. There are plenty of listeners I knew when I knew listeners that were fun. I will say that. I just cannot make blanket statements.
We don't know. Plus, we're not always fun, So who are we thanking again, Zach?
We're thanking Carlos Cordova. This was fun. I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm not gonna say a lot of people are fun. I bet Carlos is fun.
I hope so. I hope all of our listeners are.
Carlos likes magic, and that sounds like it would be a fun thing.
That's a plus. So if you want to be like Carlos, go over to patreon.com/Battle of the Atom. You know the deal. So
Adam,
folks,
what do you got going on?
Well, we were kind of insinuating or like referring to X-Man Hunt earlier, which is the current X-Men crossover. Comics XF has you covered. We are covering every piece of this, and we have a fun little thing where we are adding a third writer to our talks as the hunter in the X-Man Hunt. So, for example, I was tasked with covering Uncanny X-Men, which is the first issue of this with my co-writer Austin Gorton, but we also have a hunter aboard our review, and that is Armand Babu. So
Armand's great.
Yes. So check those out.
Armand fan over here.
Yeah, each one of the reviews is going to be a lot of fun. So check that out. And you can always follow on social, Adam Rec on Blue Sky and Instagram. Zach, we did magic tonight. What kind of magic are we going to get up to next week?
But do you believe in magic in a young girl's heart? Because there's a young girl's heart that lives inside one Rob Liefeld. I like to believe.
Here we go.
And the magic that came out of that young girl's heart is the magic of Major X.
Whoa.
And brother, here's the thing, folks, because we're going to forget that we did this by the time we record next week. But me and Adam were trying to figure out what we were waiting to record because we have a couple of patrons who just haven't gotten back to us yet.
Yeah, get back to us, patrons.
Get back to us, or else we do this. This is a threat.
This is what happens.
And me and Adam were looking over our list of things that we want to cover eventually and just saying, what strikes our fancy? What makes us feel good? And I had this in mind, and I didn't want to say it first, and Adam did. And Adam said, well, we could do Major X stuff. And I said, yeah, we will do Major X stuff. Thank you. That's all I want to talk about. So next week, we're talking about Major X. Everyone's favorite X-Men character, Major X.
Woo. Okay.
We all love Major X. We all think about Major X all the time. Major X is so important to the X-Men continuity. Probably, if I have to think about it, probably the most important addition to X-Men continuity in the year 2019. Okay. And in fact, I would think name of the utopian place that Major X came from in 2019, probably the most important mutant nation established in 2019.
Wow. Okay. Man, you got to save some of this energy for next week.
I'll have reread all of these truly atrocious comics. So until then, folks. Oh, I can't wait. Adam, I don't get excited like this anymore. Yes, I do. But I'm excited for this. Until then, folks, This has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!